Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of HR Nightmares. You got the ladies here. I'm Lisa.
Beth.
Amy.
And we're hosts. We love talking about HR nightmares, and in particular, we love solving them with and for you. Hopefully get you thinking about ways that you can go back to the workplace and solve some problems or situations that you're dealing with yourself. We always take write-ins, so go to leathhrgroup.com. You can submit them anonymously, whether you're an employee, you're a manager, you're an HR person, you're an owner. We love to hear from you, so make sure you get those in for the next time. Today's topic is all about our whiplash with respect to, our tolerance for remote and hybrid work. It's been kind of like a crazy couple years post-COVID, and where we got really, really comfortable with fully remote workforces. And then the talent market was wild, and we were hiring people no matter where they lived and saying like, cool, 100% remote is like totally fine with us. We just need the work done. To big companies, medium-sized companies, small companies, all kind of swinging the pendulum back to fully in office, fully on site, relocation packages. And so I love to spend the next 30 minutes or so just kind of talking about what we're seeing out there in the market and what's working, what's not working. Certainly different kinds of industries and different kinds of companies require different workforces, and they could be hybrid, remote, on-site, or combination of all three. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what's everybody seeing out there in the market with clients?
Most of my clients have had return to work completely. Fully return to work.
Like 8 to 5, 9 to 5?
They can choose their hours,
Okay,
but then stick their hours. So however they can set that up. But yeah, all of my clients are in person 5 days a week.
With no remote day option?
Sometimes if they're working on a project, it's project specific. So it's not like they have like Tuesdays remote, but project specific.
What industries?
Film.
Okay.
Veterinarian, which you would need to be there.
Right.
Nonprofits, a lot of nonprofits, and then actually building and manufacturing, or not building, manufacturing, building and construction.
Okay. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say all of mine, with the exception of one that I don't work with anymore, have pretty much always been in office. Now, with the caveat that there's a few people that maybe have a special setup, like we're small and nimble enough that if someone, like we've got a couple people in one org where spouse moved away and we wanted to retain the person. So we've made, and that job's able to be done remote.
Just like a
so
one
like
exception
it's
off.
a one person is remote. But for the most part, yeah, I would say most of mine have been in office. I've had quite a few clients over the years that kind of have always had the mindset of like the remote doesn't work. I mean, they did it when they were kind of forced to do it.
Even during COVID, they were in office.
But like even during COVID, they kind of wanted people in there just distancing unless it was like mandated that they couldn't. But for the most part, and I have like a nonprofit, residential construction, a private equity group, financial group, like a couple different groups. I had worked with one IT that was all remote, and I still talk to them, and they have maintained and still insist on continuing to be all remote, but they were all remote prior to COVID too. So I think that's part of the difference.
Do they live in
weren't forced
different
to be.
geographical areas, or are they all local, remote?
Mine are all you mean that one specific company? Yeah, no, that one specific company, they are all across all time zones, even have a couple of people that work for them in Canada that do contract work with them in Canada. And they were kind of always like that, right? Mm-hmm. And even pre-COVID, I think they had more people here that were Wilmington based, and they had a small office in Wilmington for years. And then they just realized like that's overhead that we don't need when this works. But again, they've always just been a little bit more like mindset advanced, mm-hmm. like they want the best talent, and they know this pool of talent for they're an IT company, was not it. So they're like, why would we,
Right. Just pick people.
Yeah, like we've got all these great people all over. So why not do this? This works. So let's keep doing it. And again, I think when they got rid of the overhead, they realized like that's an expense too that we don't need. And I think that's maybe where I see some of it in some of these larger companies that we see these announcements being made, or even some of the companies I work for. It's like we have the space and we're paying for the space and we need people to come in and use this space. And that's where I'm like, okay, well, is this about people then?
I know,
or a
it's
budget?
so-
And
it's so
I have to
interesting.
constantly be like,
the rationale for coming
well,
back.
some of it,
It's
I
like,
have
well,
one
then
company.
sell the building.
Well, I
like,
have
what
one
do they
company
have to
I
do
worked
there?
with here that I was like, we don't have the space. We are out of space. So the next person you hire, we do need a couple people to maybe be some hybrid, or we need to create some WeWork shared spaces because we're out of offices here.
I had one that was so interesting. It was a nonprofit that were geographically, all the employees were across the state of North Carolina. And one didn't like that setup and asked to work in a brick and mortar office by themselves because I guess their home life was, maybe they had I don't know, other things. And so they did that. And I thought, wow, I've never heard of that, where the company actually invested in a building.
Like rented
for
them
one
a
person.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a WeWork space. It was an actual building.
rented
I was
like a-
there you go.
Okay.
There you have it.
That's interesting. I probably wouldn't do that as a business owner, but I can understand.
I mean, it's
that
like
not-
a Leath HR group. I mean, people are knocking on Andy's door every day being like, come, be near us, or like different.
Be with us,
be
right?
good, like partners that we work with all the time, that it would make a lot of sense to like see their customers coming in and out of their office to be like, hey, come check us out. But at the same time, we're getting the referrals anyway. So like, why pay $3,000 a month? It's like overhead that super doesn't make sense
Unnecessary,
for us,
yeah.
especially because you guys are out in the customers' offices anyway.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to like do your work in a Leath HR group office. You're going to be able to go home and do it like as you
No,
please.
that would
and-
seem so silly.
Oh, it'd be crazy.
At our kitchen table, right?
Yes, kitchen table, couch, wherever you want to do it. On your back porch. It's funny. I spend my days in software, and when I go meet up with some of like the private equity investor, other HR leaders like from across the portfolio, they think it's wild that we have like a headquarters building where a good amount of like our team members come in and out of with some regularity. They just think it's crazy. Like I would say more than half of these companies that are in hyper growth stage software companies, they just nobody has an office.
Yeah, and it's a nice building that you guys have, a big space in a good location. So,
but it's funny, we're out of office space now too.
Yeah.
And it's like, so when nobody's in, then it's like a ghost zone.
right.
But when everybody's in, there's not enough room. There's not even enough parking spaces. But
So I assume you guys
That's
have
interesting.
still
Yeah.
done it. Like you still have kind of a hybrid.
we have a hybrid,
Workforce.
but it's interesting because the culture like loves, like when people do come in, a lot does get done, and there is a great like healthy positive buzz. But I think we got a good thing going on with like, hey, for a lot of check-ins or team meetings, it's if you're in town, come on in. Like it's just good to be around each other. I love going in because I see my boss like when he comes out to get a coffee or whatever, and we get like a 5-minute conversation that I wouldn't have had. He wouldn't have thought to like call me on my
you.
cell. So you get little nuggets of extra information by just being in the office. So I think there is definitely, I try to show my face like most days, like 4 out of 5 days, if not even for the whole day, just like to go in and kind of be near people and available.
Yeah.
But definitely don't have to. And like half of our executive team is not here. So but I love the hybrid model. Like I'm a super fan.
I think that's my favorite.
If
the
that
hybrid
can
model.
be an option for a company, I think it's just so awesome. That way, people who love to go in have the option. Go and be around people. Get out of like your kids' playroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
which is
just
your
think
office
like,
space.
I think of like my old, corporate role and the last role I had in that company. I had an office in kind of a regional headquarters, but my job was to be at really a different place every day. So I think like we had this huge like $10,000 a month space above one of our stores that we rented for decades. And for decades, there used to be buyers and regionals and all kinds of people in that. And slowly, as people transitioned and the org changed and people moved out to Seattle and we relocated lots of people, there was like 25 of us as a regional team that was there maybe one day a week at most. And we were paying $1 million a year for this space, or not 10,000. It was like $100,000 a month. Right.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry. It was really expensive. It was like $1 million a year. And we're paying for the space. So we finally like gave it back to the mall, and the mall turned it into their space. We gave it back. We had private we were able to block off the exits and entries and stuff that went into our store. And then we went to one of our other little stores that had some space, and we just created like open space. And literally the only ones with an office were me and the senior vice president of the region. We were the only ones that had dedicated offices. Everybody else just had like a space to plug in when they came. That cost us nothing because it was already in one of the stores. And so we just thought, we're not here. Does it matter if I'm in this office on a Monday or if I'm sitting at my countertop on a Monday? It really doesn't, because our job was to be all over the place anyways. And I just think of how many versions of that there are with other companies that have like a dedicated office for someone who's there less than one time a week, and how expensive that is.
Do you know, sometimes with all the fractional work that we do, I don't know if this happens to you too, but they have designated spaces for us, and we're there, maybe 4 hours
a week or something.
Yeah, 4 hours once a week. And I'm like, you guys don't have to have this dedicated space.
I used to feel terrible about that.
I'm like, please, I'll be
in a conference room.
Yeah, give me the kitchen. Yeah, and it was so fun. Yeah. But I
unfortunately don't have that.
And then when they ask me, they're like, would it be possible if you don't sit here? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm like, whenever I start with a new client, they're like, okay, let's think of some space. I'm like, I can just haul up wherever there's an open
your
seat.
Receptionist sofa
room.
Yeah. I mean, I just would like rotate, from space to space. And anytime I'm like, do you need this off? Sometimes I go into an open conference room or office or something, but the minute someone needs it, I'm like, scoot out. I'm like, guys, I'm here 4 to 8 hours a week. Like, do not dedicate space.
Well, one thing I've noticed, I have a friend who's always been remote. They were hired remote for the federal government, and they are, I probably shouldn't say which department, but anyway, the departments were all told to return back to DC with very little notice. And so he was in the position of, I guess I'm going to quit my job because I have a life here. I've lived here for 14 years in Wilmington. His children are in activities at school. And so
he's just unwilling to relocate.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. But how hard though? Because that's probably a fairly specialized job.
It's a very specialized job, but there wasn't enough notice. And I think that when companies do decide to make a big change like that, I think the key is getting people's input, or also getting people's input, the employees' input, but also making the timeline realistic.
Oh, especially if
I think Amazon did do that. So Amazon announced that return to work. So Amazon hired a ton of people over the last handful of years for remote jobs. I mean, they were hired to be remote, like their talent teams and some regional leadership teams and store ops teams and stuff. Cause I have some former Nordstrom people that went to Amazon and made the jump after COVID. And so went to Amazon, and then I'm seeing all of these people that I know on LinkedIn that are now looking for work because they live in Boston, or I have one in Miami, and now they're all out of work. Now, I think they did give them a pretty long lead time for it. It was 6 months it's coming. So they gave them a really long time to figure it out. But in my mind, I'm just like, wow, you're such a huge company. Do you want to limit your talent pool to people who live in Seattle? Right.
Well, we had somebody that we were looking to hire for an HR role that was open, that we were doing the search for. And they were with Amazon HR, and they had to uproot their family, their kids in school, to move to Virginia, which they had no family, no support.
AWS is in Virginia.
Yeah. And they were, stressful. 6 months is not a long time. It might be, but you have to sell your house, find a new house, find schools, get out of schools.
Yeah.
So anyway, they ended up staying in Wilmington. They found a different job.
Yeah. It's just tough. I've seen it. I think what's hard is if you've been able to do that job successfully for years and be remote, then is it then what's driving it, right? It's clearly not a business problem. So there's something else behind it. Either we're looking to kind of downsize and we're banking on the fact that all these people may not want to move, and we need to eliminate some staffing, and this
Usually,
is easier.
I think it's the cowardly way out.
Because I don't know that necessarily, who knows if there's severance involved in who knows what those arrangements look like. I'm sure it's different based on company.
But how harsh to be like, if you don't arrive on Tuesday to your new
You got to be serious about it. You can't be messing around. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you're going to draw that line, like you when you announce it, you better be ready to like pull the trigger and fire all those people.
Yeah.
Well, are you talking about, our government, terrible. Like that was, we won't get into the politics on this podcast, but not a political podcast, but that was very interesting, right? But I'm just so curious, like what is truly behind those reasons?
Well, because you made a decision to run a business that was either hybrid or fully remote before. And so did you have a good culture of accountability and good systems in place to manage your individual human beings? And probably not if you're like, I'm just going to call everybody back so I can lay eyes and just like micromanage the shit out of these people. If that's why you're trying to do it. Listen, like, especially in big cities, it's so hard to call everybody back remotely because you're losing. Like, I think about when I lived in New York, you lose an hour on your way to work. Yeah. You lose an hour on your way home. And now dealing with like the new generations that are all about, their life, then work, then life balance. It's like, life,
life,
they
work
ain't
balance.
Gonna be doing 2-hour commutes like we used to do.
Well, I even think it's even beyond that. Like I think about the amount of time that it would I would spend to get ready to go to work versus the amount of time I can spend to just log onto my computer. And it's like, I still show up looking presentable, but like, I don't have to like do all the things that I did when I was like, full glam. I was like, I'll just put a few curls in the front of my hair and be on this webcam. I'm good. Right. Yeah. So you just think it's like all that time. I haven't heard anybody
say webcam.
Is that webcam? The Zoom call? What's it, video? Is it just video?
Okay, I don't know. That sounded provocative.
I was dating myself. I'm not a Gen Zer. But yeah, you think about all that time. I don't even like to drive 20 minutes across town anymore.
I know.
Because I got used to kind of being remote for a lot of people.
It is actually whiplash if you go from hybrid to fully on site. And like, what are you getting out of those folks? And will you actually lose something because they are either resentful because you flip the switch on them and bait switch them? Will they be like, God, I could have given you 3 hours more for the same price, but now you're forcing me to do something I don't want to do. I valued being able to sit in my Zoom suit, right? And only do 2 curls in the front or the yoga pants and be on the webcam.
Zoom suit. I've never heard that. That's great.
But like, or now you're making me, I got to figure out daycare for my kids in the morning where I didn't before, and all these complicating life factors. So it's like, will you end up demotivating people to give you their all because you're inconveniencing their life? I just feel like the answer is yes, because I know like emotionally for me, I value hybrid so much for my life. And it's not like I work any less. I probably work more because I don't have to do 2 hours worth of getting ready and getting my kids to like somewhere for somebody to watch them before I go in at 8.
Well, I think the frustrating thing is that the sell on back to work has got to be more than like, we just want to see you and the culture piece. Cause I'm like, BS. I call BS because 90% of the time, that may be true the like one day of the week for the 1 hour that you're all like doing a huddle in person, right? But 90% of the time, their workday is going to be exactly the same. They're going to sit behind
100%
a webcam.
Exactly.
They're going to video. They're going to be on calls all day.
Yeah.
They're going to be, or they're in jobs where they have a highly like computerized job to begin with, and their life doesn't change. So why are we making them drive and then have to find daycare and pay for eating lunch out now and like all these different factors just to come in and sit at the desktop in this office
to close your door and be on Zooms anyway.
Yes.
That's so funny though, if you think about
it.
What makes a good business is being agile for their customers, right? If their customer needs this and you really want the business, then maybe you'll shift here just to get the business.
Yeah.
And so that mindset of how they're getting the business with their customers needs to kind of be replicated with how they're dealing with their biggest group is their employees. And I don't think that they're agile enough.
Well,
they're not thinking.
Before you go back to fully on site from hybrid or remote, I think you got to look at your management team, because again, they're your frontline managers are your biggest asset, your biggest liability. I will say sometimes like things can slip. So if you've got customer facing folks, to your point, and everyone's working remotely, I never know unless I go back and watch the recordings. Like if the customer's on video when you're not on video, like how would I know that? Right. But so we should be inspecting what we expect if we're fully remote, because if not, and somebody gets caught, then you start suspecting everybody's not being as professional. Like you would always be on camera if you were in the office.
Right. It's a knee-jerk reaction
to
so a couple of bad examples.
Right. And so just like inspecting what you expect when you have remote and hybrid teams is just really important. Yeah. So be inspecting your managers and what they're doing.
I think that sometimes this might be controversial, but I'll say it and see what you guys think. There are some cases with these small nonprofits where people will say, "Oh, I'll work from home. My kids are sick, but I'll be working from home." And I think that sometimes that bothers like maybe the CEO or the executive director, because they know they've had kids.
Yeah.
And they realize you're really not going to be giving me a full time. So why don't you use PTO and be fully home with your kids, or be fully at work? And I think that sometimes maybe some of this backlash or whiplash, like you said, might be to some of the employees' behaviors too. So
I totally agree.
They need to kind of watch those behaviors a little bit.
I will say, like, being in office, there are things that make it easier day to day, right? Like I can walk in and find the person I need. I don't have to text. I don't have to, message them and see if they're available. Yeah. I don't have to leave a message and wait for them to call me back. I can literally just walk down the hallway and find them and ask what I need. Is that convenient? Absolutely. Does it make it a little bit easier to just kind of get things done and accomplish stuff day to day? It does. Is that worth upsetting a whole force of workers and paying all this overhead? I don't know. Again, it's like, does that really outweigh the benefits of remote work? And some of that is just, again, are we setting the expectations of availability and all this stuff? It's like, if you're at work, I shouldn't have to wonder why you're not responding. Like I should either know on your calendar that you're on a call and that's why you're not responding anymore, or like you should be picking up the phone or whatever it is.
So do you think that the employees aren't using technology to the level that they need to?
No, I think we have public calendars. We have public calendars, and it's like totally part of our culture to have like drive to Ashton Farms and get the kids at 3:25. Like people know I'm out for 30 or 40 minutes to go pick my kids up at camp during the summer. Yeah. And then I'm back on, and you can call me before, after, or if you're comfortable calling me on my cell phone, like, and we don't need to be on video, then call. But like we have public calendars. So even like some of the private, now I'm not going to put like my lady doctor on the calendar, and I mark that private webcam, lady doctor.
Appointment.
Appointment. So some things are private, but in general,
I hope I don't have a lady doctor webcam.
Some things are only to be talked about on this podcast.
I'd be like, zoom in.
But it is true. I mean, you asked why, and I'm like, I personally, from what I see, I think it's because we have managers that aren't very good about actually coaching the bad behavior and actually saying to the person that's supposed to be working remotely, that's not answering the phone, and we haven't heard from in 4 hours, like, what the heck are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah. So then the fence
you've abused
around
the
that one
right.
person.
Now you get to come in.
You get to come back to the office.
But they're building it around everybody.
Exactly. I just think we have people that I think we're lazy about actually coaching expectations.
Yeah.
Personally.
I mean, over the last several years, people that work remotely, if they have young children, it's like, okay, they're homesick. That's one thing. Like you probably could get some work done, and I'd rather you get some than none done.
I would rather you just take a full day off and focus on it.
If they're so sick, then I guess like use your judgment. But also, if you are doing daycare for your 6-month-old in the morning and your spouse is doing it in the afternoon, and I'm paying you $200,000 to work full time for me, you need to get to be an adult and take that child to daycare. Like, go find a daycare. Yes. Go find a nanny.
I mean,
like, you don't get to babysit and work full time.
Be at home and have young children at home
all the time.
I have a tiny little dog, and even sometimes I'm like, I would rather play with her than like be on this call right now. So like, I mean, and she's a dog. Like, she's self-sufficient. she doesn't even want to play with me, but I want to play with her.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I guess it's
distracting.
I think that you get burned though. Maybe that's the answer. People are getting burned and then they're making these rules because we had one group where they had a very high level executive that was in office for this XYZ company, but oopsies, they were doing a full-time remote job.
Wow.
So they were doing 2 jobs at once.
Wow.
Really bad. And
wow,
I think
they were working a lot or not working,
or not working
and just
a lot.
pretending.
But I think what happens with that is if you get burned once, especially with a small business, when all of your whole life is in that small business.
You take it way too personally.
Yeah, you take it really personally and you're like, that's it, shutting the door. We're never going to have this again.
Yeah.
And that's why you need great HR people like us to say like, you can't personalize this stuff and you can't create rules that apply to everyone because one person had bad behavior.
Right.
Like that's
but
not
you can
a
stand
good
up
way.
in front of the team and be like, hey, I just want to remind everybody of the expectations. It's a privilege to work remotely.
Yeah.
We haven't had many problems, but I do have to say, like, when the boss, the owner, the CEO, the HR person text you, respond within the hour. That's like a reasonable thing. Or, hey, I'm in meetings for the rest of the day. Let me get back to you later tonight, or is tomorrow okay? Yes, that's reasonable. But the professional etiquette is sometimes lacking.
Listen, I used to have to respond within an hour when I was out of the country on vacation, let alone just working remotely. So sometimes I'm like, people, this is not hard. But I think that's why I preach to my clients to just like not be so firm either way, to have some agility and flexibility around this topic. Because I think, we talk about some jobs that are more, beginning jobs or where they're just training and new people. I'm like, if we don't have the systems and the processes to enable them to be able to be remote and learn the company and learn the job, like they do need to be here on a day-to-day basis. And then whoever they report to should be here as well. And like, so sometimes it's not all jobs. Sometimes it's not all people. Some people don't want to be remote. Some people don't like remote work. They want to come to the office. I had that at one client who she had no interest, even though, and she was going through some things and we're like, you can work from home. She's like, ugh. She had to a few times because of what was happening in her life, but she really preferred to be at the office. She wanted to separate her life. She wanted to work hard while she was at work and be with her family when she was at home. Right. And I respected that. So sometimes I'm like, let's not create one blanket rule for everyone. Let's have some agility here. And if there are people who abuse it, then part of the corrective action is that maybe they won't have the privilege of being hybrid or working remotely 3 days a week. Maybe they'll be in the office now.
Yeah, or if they can't come to the office, or you don't, or I mean, that's a discression problem.
They can't
too.
figure that out.
Then
Then
you
they
can
won't
go
be
to
there
their
very long.
kitchen table. Be
I
like,
wouldn't
hey,
even do it.
we can't work for you here.
You don't work here anymore. So I don't trust
But
you.
I mean, I don't think I personally could probably go back to 5 days a week, 8 to 9 hour days, 8 to 5 in the office.
Impossible.
I mean, it would be hard. It would be really hard. I like a balance, but I don't mind, I'm with clients a good, 3 days a week that I'm probably in their office, 6 to 8 hours, a day of those days. And, I like that. And then having some balance on those other days or being able to get home by 3 and, finish up the rest of my day remotely or, do some projects on the weekend if I have time. Like I like the flexibility so I can understand why employees are asking for it.
I've always liked it. Even before when I had little kids at home, I remember I'm like, there's just no way I can work all this time. And I remember asking special permission to get off at 3. And the special permission was that I would now be an hourly employee. But I was like, that's fine. Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's fine.
And some people might be fine with that. I mean, if you are gonna transition from hybrid or remote to fully on site, something to consider. I mean, even you think about healthcare shifts, these people have to be in there, but guess what? They don't work 5 12-hour days every week, right? They work 3-day shifts. Most nurses do, right? Doctors, they work 3 days or 4 days. They don't work 5-6 days like we do sometimes in the office. So I think even thinking about ways to be creative and job share or move people to hourly, and you still get probably close to the same output.
I was so appreciative of that. I worked extra hard, because I was so grateful to get out at 3.
Yeah, you better have a really great office environment for me to spend that amount of hours in these days. Like, right? I
But
mean,
you
my
also,
old job, I
you
got to go
also
like
earned the
try
privilege
on
of where you are.
lipstick and
I would really like
try
to
on
have
shoes
the
and
nice
look at pretty
basket of good
merchandise.
snacks.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Even the good snacks. Yeah.
No, it's not enough to drive me to want to be
no,
there
it
all
won't
the time.
drive me, but I'm like,
that's what
that will
saying.
help
Like,
me.
but some of the offices that I'm like, okay, I mean, you're
does
asking
make a
them to come
difference
back
to be
in
a-
and they have like a very small cube that doesn't have a window. It's like claustrophobic in here. Would you want to sit in here 11 hours a
Right.
day? No.
Yeah.
For no reason.
For
That's
no
the
reason.
thing.
They're just sitting behind a computer.
Yeah.
I again, when you're in meetings all day and it goes by and you have to
I
be in
wonder,
person,
it would
that's
be so
different.
interesting, like a research that would be so interesting for me to see the companies that want to be fully on site if they have really nice offices and want to get the money back somehow. I think that's it. Because I'm thinking about the offices where I work. They're really nice, big offices.
Yeah.
Like glammy, nice offices.
Yeah. Well, they're proud of the fact that they've got a stake in the community and they want,
It's not like the steel made, like
old timey
shed.
Yeah, most
manufacturing.
of most of my client offices are all like nice big offices. I mean, I don't know that any of it's enough that everyone's again. They've all been in
rationale?
person the whole time, so it's nothing
what
different
do you
for
think
them.
the rationale is then? I wonder if they're trying to make back their money that they spent on the physical location.
I don't know. I think every company is a little different because if they're offering like reload packages to all these people, I mean, they're forking over some money to get people back to the office. So there must be some driving business reason behind it long term.
I know for us, the ones that we want to come in or live in Wilmington, like where we're relocating people to Wilmington, it's because we're standing up a new product line, right? So like new technology, and we need like the CTOs here, the CEOs here. You need kind of that constant feedback in order to like stand up
The
a new
like
business
collaboration
unit right
day to
away.
day.
Yeah, we're trying to move fast and grow this thing. But other than that, I mean, if it's like I said, half the leadership team is remote, and half of the broader team is also remote, like across basically every state in the United States. So, and it's working great. I mean, shit, we're growing 100% year over year. So like, I don't know. It would be crazy to make everybody move here. It just wouldn't happen.
Well, you have to risk the fact that some people are going to say no, thank you, and then you lose that talent. And I don't know
Over
that
something so petty.
that's a risk you're willing to take. If you just need them maybe 1 week out of the month, they could come and do all their in-office things and be in a hotel 3 nights.
And so I love that idea. That is a great, and that's something that
like for
we've
me,
been
for
trying to talk to
executive
people
like
about.
yours that work out of town, for me, I would just be like, hey, 1 week a month,
Come
you
for the
fly
monthly
in
business
on
review.
Monday, you fly out Friday, you spend 3 nights in a hotel. And you get all your kind of in person with your team, and we get all those meetings kind of done in a week.
That's
and
the best. Is
you know,
just come in
that
for a
seems
week.
like an easy solution. And my guess is that would be a lot less expensive than
think so.
finding them a new office when you're out of office space anyway.
Right.
I saw something, one of my friends had a remote job, but they had to live within 2-hour drive in case they needed to
there's
be
some companies
a
in-
call.
yeah.
There's
a call
also
on site.
some state
And I was like,
requirements.
okay,
Yeah.
that's not bad.
Well, different states have different requirements on like where you have to live in order for like tax purposes. So like I know we faced that when we were first hired. Like I forget, we went through like an org change and we kind of hired people, I think into maybe Nordstrom.com started hiring like customer service representatives, like outside of Seattle, right? Like we were making those jobs available, and it was more for time zone purposes too, a little bit. And I remember people had to go through certain like zip code requirements for like how to just classify them. I could be totally wrong, and we could have solved that by now. That was like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But there's some states that still for taxation purposes, like you can't just live anywhere. Like it doesn't translate. Or they're like like if someone wanted to move out of the country and be remote, they can only do it for a certain period of time, and then they have to return.
We just had somebody do that, and we had to set up
You
Google
can't for 6
payroll
months
and-
like work in a different country.
We did that for one of the groups I'm no longer with, but they had this great guy who had very, very specialized talent and very specialized skill set. And he wanted to move to Montana.
Yeah.
And it was a big to do. Should we allow it? I'm like, why would we not?
Yeah.
You know?
All you got to do is
And
set
now
up
I'm so happy.
a state tax code.
Yeah, you have
Beyond
yeah.
That's
happy.
the worst part.
Yeah, very happy. And the big thing was that we would be on 2 different time zones so that he would then work accordingly.
Well, he
He'd
just
work
needs
in
to
this
wake up
time zone.
early.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
he wanted to do. Yeah,
He
I mean,
wants to move. He can wake up at 6 a.m. and clock in,
And
right?
he did, and
Yeah.
it was great. Like I was so glad that they saw the benefit of that.
Yeah, we have some. I'm like, it is so hard to replace people and find great talent. I'm like, listen, we had one at one place that I work with who just, his spouse moved to Raleigh. So he needed to Raleigh. I'm like, it's 2 hours away. He's like a finance coordinator, like he's a pretty like behind a computer job in the office too. And he's great. I'm like, do we really want to like train? We have a finance team of 3 people. Yeah. Like he's kind of critical to the team. And, the biggest pushback on that org, because everyone's in office, was more like, well, does that create inequity when we have different rules for different people? And I'm like, listen, this is not an area that I'm like super concerned about equity across the board, right? We're not discriminating against anybody based on protected class, because we're making something work for the employee. But they're always very concerned about like the equity. I'm like, listen, there's certain things we look at equity on. And then there's things like this where we can make exceptions to the rule.
Right. Yeah.
Because there are no rules. We created the rules. So like, this is not
that's what people are scared about.
Class. Yeah.
That's where we can be super helpful. It's like, well, am I allowed to do that? And what am I going to get in trouble? Is that legal? It's like, well, just call us. I mean,
or we need a remote work what's a policy on this? I'm like, the policy is to be not have a policy so you can be agile and make these decisions based on each business case.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, you don't do good work, or you're new, or you're still getting trained. No, I'm sorry, you can't be remote. Like like this guy's been here for years.
Or you're the receptionist.
Yeah. You might have to have
you got to be here to get the
in
chopped.
This one, the marketing person, I'm like, well, unfortunately, they have to be at events every single week. So that moving to Raleigh probably isn't going to work. But like the finance coordinator, who quite honestly, he sits in his office behind his computer all week anyway. Like I was like, I think this one works. So yeah.
I like the idea of setting expectations when people do move away and are going to be remote while everybody's in the office. I think that's super important. If they do move out of the country, like if they're on a sabbatical because their spouse is going to like teach in Germany or something in 6 months, like figure out if you can make it work. It's probably worth it. But if they're moving there forever, then you got to probably put them on global payroll, that gets extremely expensive. I just went through that. That sucked. I think setting good expectations, being really strategic about why you're forcing people away from a remote or hybrid, because it can be very emotional and you will end up losing people. And if you're fine with that, that's fine. But I would encourage you to like drive towards more of a culture of accountability. If you're looking to just force people back to the office so that you can shed a few pounds, that's not great.
Or because you think that you can't possibly figure out how to create great culture without them being in the office.
That's right.
Then you got to look internally, because that's not a good business decision.
You got some work to do.
Yeah. I have one that, kind of always said that. And I'm like, I have news for you.
Yeah.
If you can't figure it out, then you probably weren't very good at creating the in-office culture either. So like, I don't think that's the problem.
That's right.
Them not being here.
I'm very proud. We have a, mostly hybrid workforce and a plus 53 employee net promoter score at Vanica, which is like world class. So there's your proof. Like you can do it. If you got to be really intentional about it and do the extra work, but and overhire on your talent team too, right? Like you got to have HR expertise and people. You got to take care of the people team before they can take care of the rest of the organization. So overhire in HR. And if you can't do that, or you're not ready, or you want some help, then call Leath HR Group. Any other comments on remote, hybrid, in-office whiplash we've been feeling?
No, I think we covered it all.
I say hybrid. That's what my final.
Oh, thing. Like what's your preferred? Yeah. I think it's just, I say it's what works for the business and the people. I just don't think there's like one way is the best way or the only way. I think there's some places where in-person is the only way, because that's what your business is, right? Your retail, your restaurant, you're those, and then there's others. It's like, if you can do it, do it. If you can't, then that's okay too. But make sure the reasons are the right reasons.
Totally agree.
Fair enough.
All right. Holler at your girls. Put your anonymous write-ins at leathhrgroup.com, and we'll be happy to respond the next time we record. Thank you for tuning in to HR Nightmares with the Leath HR Group ladies. If you need an HR consultant, we highly encourage you to give a call. We'd love to do a discovery, find out what you're dealing with in your business. Tell all your friends about HR Nightmares. Get the word out there. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great one.